I'm David Stein of Money for the Rest of Us, and this video is on how to choose a career and not to choose one based on fear. I recently had a lengthy conversation with a successful children's book illustrator who, in his mid to late 30s, decided to go to dental school with 4 kids still at home. He just had finished his first semester, which he describes as a pretty miserable 5 months. And now he's asking himself, what in the world have I gotten myself into? He's seriously considering dropping out of the dental program, and he agreed to let me share his story as long as I didn't disclose his name. When I say this illustrator is successful, I mean he is at the top of his field. He's produced book covers for best-selling children's fantasy series, and over the past decade, he's earned between $80,000 and $150,000 a year. That's about 2 to 3 times the average salary for freelance illustrators. His family lives on about $60,000 per year after tax, and he's been a diligent saver, having amassed about $450,000 in assets. He worked hard for that income, drawing 6 days a week, often into the night. But he also loves illustrating, and the time seems to fly by when he sits in the chair working, and he always looks forward to returning. He's totally engaged in the work of illustration. Now, I know dentists who get that same sense of joy and flow while crafting dental implants. I have an engineer friend who became a dentist and just likes being able to figure out to get the tooth that he makes to fit. He loves it. This illustrator is passionate about drawing, but not dentistry. But passion for most people doesn't come until after they try something, discover they like it, and develop mastery. That's what Bill Burnett and Dave Evans say in their book. It's called Designing Your Life. It's a great book. This illustrator has put time in order to master drawing, so it could become his passion. But he's not yet done that with dentistry. He's just really still in the early stages. Even though his first semester is miserable, now he's on his second semester. But I asked him, well, what is it about dental school? Why did you want to go? He said many people have asked him this very similar question. They would say, well, why would you want to look into people's mouths all day? He said for 95% of dental students, financial compensation is the driving factor. Now, many seasoned dentists, he says, do seem to love their patients and staff, and he believes that, and he hopes to get there one day. But the reality is, he chose dentistry because of the money. He could work less hours and have more time for family and church. He could take some family vacations, be in a better position to help out his children in the future, and if they struggle with unemployment or other hardships. He admits illustration can be a bit solitary at times, and occasionally he'll have to leave his house for 2 or 3 days and go off on his own so he can meet a deadline. So he thought it might be kind of cool to work as a team and get that experience. This illustrator did exactly what Burnett and Evans recommend in their book, Designing Your Life. He visited with other dentists. The authors call these prototype conversations, where you talk to someone who is doing or living the life you're contemplating. You find out what they love and hate about their jobs, what their days are like, and their career path that got them to their current position. So that's what this illustrator did. He's got 4 dentist friends and a brother-in-law who's a dentist. He visited with them. He followed them around the office to see what their life was like. And he said they seemed to be financially secure with a lot of balance. He mentioned one of his dentist friends showed up one day driving a Porsche. And while this illustrator doesn't want to own a Porsche, he says occasionally it'd be kind of cool to just have a 5-year-old pickup truck. So after shadowing several dentist friends during the workday, he said he found dentistry okay, but not nearly as dear to him as illustration. Burnett and Evans say designing your life is wayfinding, which they describe as the ancient art of figuring out where you're going when you don't actually know your destination. They write, since there's no one destination in life, you can't put your goal into your GPS and get the turn-by-turn directions for how to get there. What you can do is pay attention to clues in front of you and make your best way forward with the tools you have at hand. We think the first clues are engagement and energy. So engagement, they describe that, basically it's what this illustrator experiences when he draws. While he has yet to find dentistry as engaging, ideally there would be some aspect of his studies he felt that sense of excitement. Burnett and Evans write, follow the joy, Follow what engages and excites you, what brings you alive. Most people are taught that work is always hard and that we have to suffer through it. Well, there are aspects or parts of any job or any career that are hard and annoying. But if most of what you do at work is not bringing you alive, then it's killing you. The second clue they say to pay attention to in terms of designing your life is energy. Paying attention to which activities sustain your energy instead of draining you. Activities where you don't feel completely exhausted or down after a day's work. In my conversation with this illustrator, he didn't mention anything about dental work itself that excites him, that engages him, or sustains his energy. It is the stability and the financial aspects of dentistry he finds appealing, not the day-to-day work. There were times as he sat in class, he would ask himself, why am I here listening to a lecture on periodontal disease when I could be home doing something I really love? Drawing. From a financial standpoint, he figures he could make about $200,000 a year as a dentist after 2 or 3 years out of school, working 3 to 4 days a week. And that would leave some time to still draw. And, that compares to about $85,000 per year that he's earning as an illustrator. But his tuition would cost him about $350,000, and that would eat up most of his savings. He says the biggest factor is fear. His father, who's very humble, had a real estate business that went under about 25 years ago and never really recovered and hadn't really had a job since. And so his mom works long hours and now they're in their early 60s and in a really tough spot. His dad's always having to fix broken down cars or 35-year-old furnaces. And so his parents, he says, are wonderful. They're wonderful parents, wonderful grandparents, but he finds that he doesn't want to be in that situation. He doesn't want to feel trapped financially. And he's afraid perhaps his illustration business could turn for the worst. In fact, he says sometimes his arm hurts. He draws so much. So he fears a health crisis somewhere down the road. So what should he do in that situation? He said, it's blown my mind how the anxiety has taken hold of me to the point that my shoulder muscles were tiring because they were tense all day long. He said, it's blown my mind how this anxiety has taken hold of me to the point that his shoulder muscles are tense and he just feels pain and he wonders, can he endure 3.5 years of the same studying dentistry? And will he get the freedom that he expects, the financial freedom to be able to illustrate and the security that he wants? I don't know. He's sticking with dentistry, but there are other options. He could build an income and generate other assets based on illustrations. He could create courses. He could teach others. He could do all kinds of things. But the point is he has to start experimenting, iterating, trying out different things. But right now he's sticking with dentistry. But when you are planning and trying to figure out your career, do as the authors suggest, is look for those clues. Where do you find energy? Where are you engaged? And just start wayfinding down that path. Because nobody knows step by step what to do. They don't know how it's going to end. All they can do now is try one thing after the other, and that step by step is ultimately what leads to a fulfilling and successful career. So hey, if you like my channel, go ahead and subscribe to it down below. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them also below.